back when I was still an atheist. I went with a friend of mine to the new cathedral in St. Louis. We have a beautiful cathedral filled with mosaics for a mass, just to kind of see what it was like. I distinctly remember the homily. We had Archbishop May at the time. The homily was a recording, an audio recording of him begging for money, a fundraiser appeal, and he couldn't even take the time to be there in person. And the priests stood around scratching themselves while Archbishop May, in a very sort of condescending and creepy way, begged for money. So, there are some things that are eternal in the church. And you find this out in Second Corinthians. Second Corinthians is, among other things, a beg letter. But of course, this is part of how we have to function. I remember another time after I became Catholic, on the road, as I always am, going to various masses. It's a crapshoot, man. You don't know what you're going to get. That's a shame, by the way. There's no excuse for that, but that's the way it is. And there we were at Mass, my actress and I, and the priest came out and he said, "Today we're going to celebrate. It's Stewardship Sunday." Stewardship, for those of you who don't know, is the key word for they will beg for your money and for your volunteer work, and that's called stewardship. Well, I said this in my book, I celebrate Christmas, I celebrate Easter, I celebrate Thanksgiving, I celebrate birthdays. I don't celebrate Stewardship Sunday. Sorry. Now, I'll give, but I'm not going to celebrate Stewardship Sunday. Give me a break. I mean, it can be so artificial and just icky. You know what I mean? Yeah, I'm sure you know what I mean. Anyway, but in the readings today, we looked at 2 Corinthians 8 and 9, the long section in 2 Corinthians where Paul is asking for money. And it gets to be a bit tedious, but you get to the final verse, 2 Corinthians 9:15. And I think there's something very profound there. But first, before I get to that, I'm going to screen share at the Kindle. During Lent, we're going to look at the Passion accounts in all four Gospels. And when I reread them, new things always jump out at me. Here in John, because the Jewish leaders did not want the bodies left on the crosses during the Sabbath, they asked Pilate to have the legs broken and their bodies taken down. Now, we are capable of this, and we see this in the church among devout Christians and among devout fellow super Catholics all the time. And that is the notion that sanctity is merely external, and that if you're OCD, if you get your obsessive compulsive disorder in an uproar and you do just what you're supposed to do, you'll be fine. Now, I'm recording this on Ash Wednesday, and I'm reminded of the fact that my actress, who became Catholic from her experiences with Theater of the Word, after her first Lent, many months later, we found ourselves having dinner with a priest at a rectory in Rhode Island. And she said, "I had a great Lent." She said, "I gave up caffeine. I didn't think I could do it. I gave up caffeine. I didn't have any coffee. I didn't have any tea. I managed to make it through all 40 days. I'm so proud. I'm so proud of myself." And then I said, half joking, "Well, Maria, that pride undoes all the spiritual benefit of the 40 days of making that sacrifice." Because I can be a smart aleck. But I don't know if you've noticed that. I'm not giving up coffee for Lent. I'm giving up all the other things. At any rate, and I'm making fun of Maria because she knows that the faith is more than just these externals. But we tend to think that it's all about, well, I mean, look at the Jews in this. They just committed the most horrific crime in the history of creation. They just killed the Son of God. And what are they worried about? A technical observance of the Sabbath. This is another reason John tells us earlier why they don't go into the praetorium. They want to remain pure so they can celebrate the Passover. They'll kill God, an innocent man, but they will technically observe all the minutiae of the law. And you don't think we can become like this ourselves, especially as we try to get more devout? But let's get back to 2 Corinthians 9:15. I wrote to somebody just last night because this really has been on my mind since we met in class this week. It is all grace. Now let me screen share here for a minute. Grace upon grace. We get that in John 1:16. And here we are. Here's the context. Out of his fullness, we have all received grace in place of grace already given. Grace for grace. Grace upon grace. The commentary for that difficult passage, I like this. The grace replaced by grace, grace for grace, means that every grace received is a capacity for higher blessedness. Thus, Christian humility is the condition of divine uplifting. The knowledge that leads to love is the condition of that higher gnosis that is born of love. The faith that accepts mercy blossoms into the joy that is unspeakable and full of glory. Reconciliation with God becomes itself transformed into active communion with him. All union to Christ becomes the harbinger of full identification with him, he and in us and we in him. This is the great principle of the divine kingdom. To him that hath shall be given, and to him that hath not, even that which he hath shall be taken away. Now that's difficult. Even that commentary is difficult. Why am I even going here? Because 2 Corinthians 9:15, which is, just so you know, thank God for this gift too wonderful for words. Thanks be to God for his inexpressible gift. Thanks be to God for his indescribable gift. Thanks be to God for his indescribable gift, for his priceless gift, which is not really a translation, for his unspeakable gift, unutterable gift. But what is the word for thanks? I mean, this comes at the end of a beg letter. And Paul, overflowing with emotion, he's talking about giving. And he says, thanks be to God for his inexpressible gift. And the word for thanks is charis, which is the word we use for grace. Now, one of the things that happens to us, not only can we get into our OCD mode and get proud of the penances we do during Lent and think that the externals are what counts. They only really count if they're the fruit. Grace works through love. But grace itself, sometimes we think in these theological terms, and we think of grace as a thing, charis. It's not exactly a thing. It's a word to describe that it's all a gift. So I wrote to a friend just last night because I've been thinking about this all week. I could never 30 years ago have said, I want to make a good living writing and performing my own comedy shows, playing all the parts, getting people to applaud and laugh at me, spreading joy with my murder mystery dinner theater shows. I want to do that. I also want to teach classes based entirely on what I'm interested in, teach them completely in the way I want to teach them, totally come up with my own course content, teach students, some of whom are brilliant in high school performing college level work, who are devout. I never could have said I want to become friends with some of the most interesting people on the face of the earth. I want to go around evangelizing through drama. I want to have a wife who loves me, 2 kids that I'm very proud of. I want to have the ability to reach people across the world with this bizarre technology because I'm teaching a class on scripture studies that I love, that I'm not qualified for, but I love. If I had said, I want to plan all these things and I want to be an EWTN rock star, which I am, if I had said that 30 years ago, there's no way I could have achieved that. This has all been a gift. It's been grace upon grace. And what's my response been? To try to cooperate with the grace. Our response during Lent should not merely be that obsessive compulsive thing that kills the Son of God while we meticulously observe all of the technical requirements of the Mosaic law. Our response should be, thank you. Thanks be to God for his inexpressible gift. Our thanks is charis. Our thanks is grace. This is why we say grace before dinner. To say grace is to be grateful for the grace given. It's given to us. Our very existence is a gift. It's all grace. And our response should be, here's how I am thankful, Lord. I will respond graciously to your gracious gift of grace. It's more a relationship than it is a thing, this mysterious grace. And I want to quote, of course, G.K. Chesterton, which I think I can find if I go here, though sometimes I can't get to just the right tab. Here we go. I got to scroll down. All right, well, I got to scroll up. I was doing, oh no, oh man, I am never going to find it now. One of the things that I'm trying to do during Lent is not swear in anger because it only makes me more angry. Here we go. So you notice I didn't say anything. I didn't say any bad words right then. Chesterton's talking about the insanity of determinism that says that man has no free will. He says logically it would stop a man in the act of saying thank you to somebody for passing the mustard. For how could he be praised for passing the mustard if he could not be blamed for not passing the mustard? The fact that we say thank you for passing the mustard, that alone is the key to the mystery of the universe. That's the key. Thanks be to God for his inexpressible gift. Those of you watching this who are not my students, welcome to Lent. If you celebrate Lent, you don't really celebrate Lent. You kind of endure Lent. You celebrate Stewardship Sunday. If you're giving something up, maybe, do it in an act of gratitude because you know the graces you have been given. We have received grace upon grace from the fullness of God. We've received grace, and our gratitude in return for that makes us more capable to receive greater grace, richer grace, more complete grace. Because the response of grace is gracefulness, graciousness, gratis, charis, thanks. And indeed, thanks be to God for his inexpressible gift.